Post-NAR settlement, the ability to generate listings has never been more important. So what we're going to do today is I've got my buddy Jimmy Mackin. We're going to actually go through and talk to you about 5 specific strategies that will get you more listings right now. All right, Jimmy, this is the show that I know agents are looking for at a time such as this. This is where we're going to talk about, as we are seeing these NAR changes come into effect, and whether you're seeing this right before this when we're publishing it or right after, this is a time really to create some separation between you and the rest of your competition. I love the fact, Jimmy, that you're always coming with these ideas on specifically how to generate listings. Look, I think there's been so many people talking about buyer agency and things that are going on. Let's focus in a little bit of this. Where are you seeing some of these opportunities right now on that listing side?
It's first off, it's great to be back with you, Jimmy.
You too, man.
There's a great quote from David Ogilvy, which he says, "You can't save souls in an empty church." And I think right now we're seeing a lot of agents are so focused on buyer agency, as they should be, that there's sort of this missed opportunity to get in front of sellers. And so, from my perspective, I think there's a couple things I'm seeing right now, and I think maybe we'll cover 4 or 5 ideas for
Be great.
the community to kind of digest. The first, and this one, by the way, nobody's really talking about, and I think it's a massive opportunity here. My friend Lourdes, who sells real estate in South Florida, recently sent me a message on Instagram. She goes, "Jimmy, I booked a $25 million appointment off of an expired letter that you shared on social media." And so obviously that's a good hook. I'm like, that's a fantastic result. It's great to hear. But what was interesting, why this is worth sharing, is I was talking to the CEO of Espresso Agent recently, and he told me, Jimmy, the number of expireds has doubled in the last 12 months. So the first strategy, Jimmy, here is I think we got away from some of the blocking and tackling like expireds and FSBOs because in 21, it really wasn't a big percentage of the market. And so, we are in real estate, Jimmy, we're such creatures of habit. So if we stop doing something, chances are we're not going to immediately pick back up once the opportunity presents itself again. And so the first strategy is going to be, and I'll get super specific here because I think there's a right way and a wrong way of doing this. The first thing is to recognize that even if expireds in your market today are a relatively small percentage of the market, I think that is going to grow. Jimmy, you tell me your feedback on this, and we'll give an example in a minute here. But I think that is going to be a bit of a blue ocean because I don't think it's part of the average agent's everyday seller attraction blueprint, if you will.
So, Jimmy, let me give you an idea locally because, I'm in Northwest Florida and we've always been considered, because it's a luxury type market, it's a second home market, almost like a leading indicator of the leading indicator of real estate. In our local market, we've gone from roughly 200 houses for sale in this little small area of 30A market that we're in to over 800 in a 2-year period.
Wow.
Now, the majority of the rest of the country is not seeing this, but I have seen this now throughout my 30-year career, especially over the last 10 years, that we were almost the leading indicator. And we can see this edging up in other places, which we saw too. We saw it edge up, and I was like, is this, we're going to keep our eye on this, but is this just kind of a little seasonal deal? No, it continued and continues to accelerate. So we were talking about this about a year ago is hey, prepare now. So even if you're in a market that has very low to no inventory right now, one thing that we know about real estate is that things change. And so if you're preparing right now and you're getting these types of strategies in place, you will be ahead of the game and ready once this comes in. I want to add one thing, and then I want you to get specific on the strategy. And by the way, if you don't mind, listen, somewhere in the notes of this on YouTube, or if you're watching this online, if you'll email either one of us, we'll get you some specifics on these things. We'll have all that stuff for you if that's okay with you, Jimmy. That way we'll make sure we email this stuff out to everybody and get it in their hands because I think it's timely. One thing that we've done now is where the real opportunity also is look back to 6 to 9 month old expired listings. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. You're going to talk specifically to the front. Let me speak to those that are 6 to 9, and then I want to roll into you. Okay. The 6 to 9 month expired listings. Real estate agents typically have on an expired program 1 to maybe 4 weeks worth of a strategy, and then it fades. So those sellers that get past all of the barrage of agents, in the programs that are looking, and they just decided not to, especially like we're viewing this going at the end of the summer, going into this fall, look back at those folks that took it off the market in the spring. And here's all we're doing
Mm-hmm.
is we're just picking up the phone and we're simply calling and just saying, hey, this is Jimmy Burgess. Just wanted to give you a call. I noticed
Mm-hmm.
that you had your place for sale in the spring. Just wondering what exactly your plans are for that house going forward. And if at a certain price, you might consider selling your place. Just
Yeah.
simply just ask and then be quiet. Just be quiet,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And
Mm-hmm.
that's what we're seeing right now. So I think this is great. Jimmy, let's talk specifically right now because this is something I'm with you. I think we're going to see this continue to ramp up.
Yeah, this is so the letter that Lourdes, and I agree with everything you said there, Jimmy. The letter that Lourdes sent was a letter I created, which uses a copywriting framework called PASS, Pain, Agitate, Solution. And this is actually a quick AI pro tip
So
for everyone
good.
who's tuning in right now, which is if you go to AI, say, AI, give me all of the copywriting frameworks that you understand. And it will kick out dozens of different copywriting frameworks that are proven campaigns that you can use or proven frameworks that you can use when you're creating your own marketing strategies. And so I'll give you the opening line here because this really I think speaks to the spirit of the types of marketing that I create that get results, and I think will help kind of maybe shine a light on what you could be doing in your own local market. The letter opens up like this, Jimmy. Now that your home didn't sell, you've had a wave of agents promising you that, quote, they can get the deal done. You've heard this story before, you're not buying it. At this point, you're frustrated, disappointed, and likely pretty annoyed because your phone hasn't stopped ringing for the last 2 weeks. And so that opening line, and we'll drop a link to the full letter in the show
Yeah,
notes here, but that
absolutely.
opening line is the exact opposite of what every other agent's going to do, which is going to say, hey, I saw your house didn't sell. I've got a plan. I can list a house. We can get it sold. I mean, they've heard that story before. So this is an opportunity for us in marketing is to say, let's try to get into the mind of the consumer so we can build some level of trust and connection so that when we do present a potential solution to the problem, it's actually believable versus hyperbole, which is what they've been bombarded with over the last few weeks. So the first strategy, Jimmy, before we move on to number two here, is I love what you said earlier. Go back and look at all the expired listings that didn't relist. That's a great pool of people. And then step two, and what Jimmy and I are talking about right now, is get yourself ready for this. Because I'm telling you right now, my prediction is it doubled from 23 to 24. I think it's going to double again from
Completely
24 to
agree.
25.
Completely agree. Yeah. Hey, Jimmy, I let's go back to the pain agitate solution. That's just it's gold to start with. How do you lay that out? I want to get into your mindset when you're utilizing that as far as a framework. What does that typically look like? Not just in this, but if you're looking at something in that situation.
Yeah, I think the first thing is that the more specific you can be and the more relevant you can be when you're describing a problem or a
Hmm.
pain, then you are it's going to be connect with them at a deeper level. Let me give you an example of this. If I want to sell my house today, yes, I want to sell it quickly. Yes, I want to sell it for the most amount of money, but that's really not the pain. That's my desired outcome. The
Yeah.
pain is I'm afraid that I'm not going to be able to find another home. And so sometimes we fly past the underlying issue or maybe even the blocker. Maybe the other pain is I'm afraid giving up a 3% interest rate is a dumb idea, right? Like, hey, I got this. I just got I won the lottery, and you tell me I want to sell. It's too small. It's too far from work. It's too far from the family. But I've got this 3% interest rate, and I don't want to feel like an idiot if I sell the house. And so,
Yeah.
there is a you've got to get in. You the thing is, everyone who's watching this right now knows it because these are the objections or these are the problems that you hear across the kitchen table or when you're talking to your clients. But it doesn't trickle down to our marketing. Our marketing for some reason is detached from reality. So that's the first thing is really go, what is the underlying reason why someone who wants to sell isn't selling? And if you can, it's interest rates, it's fear of not being able to find a new house, fear that they're making a dumb decision because home values are still increasing, like they're cashing in too early. And then as it relates to the agitate section of this, it's more like, okay, now if they're feeling this pain, what are the secondary effects? Let's like pour a little bit of salt in the wounds, right? On that. Let's go
Yeah.
a little bit deeper. So they're like, yeah. And Jimmy, anytime I create a marketing campaign, because I create, this is what I do for a living. I help people get
Yeah.
customers.
That's why I was asking. Yeah.
And one of the things I always do is I'm looking for the head nod. When I'm writing copy or developing a campaign, I want my head to be nodding. I want their head to be nodding like, yes, I agree. And it's okay. I'll give you a great example of this. It's okay to repel people with your copy as opposed to attract them. It's okay to, like, I'll give you an example. I wrote a letter one time, a sales letter for listing attraction that has been so effective. And the opening line was, if you're in your forever home, ignore this letter. That's the opening line of the message. And it's a way of me saying, hey, listen, I'm trying to self-select. If you're never going to leave, just throw this thing away. But
Yeah.
if Jimmy, if you read that and you're like, I'm not in my forever home, maybe I got your attention where I can get you to read the second line and the third line.
Yeah.
So I'm just a huge, like, psychology is this invisible force that drives our actions, our behaviors, and our decisions. And we got to start incorporating it into the marketing that we use to attract customers.
Hey, you know what's great about this too, Jimmy? You and I talked about this, I think last week or maybe 2 weeks ago. It is what I've called dog whistle marketing. It's like,
Yeah.
a dog whistle, only the dogs hear it. And so it's like you're
Yeah.
identifying and talking specifically to a specific type of buyer or seller, where everybody else may see it, but they don't understand that this is for them. So this is really
Yeah.
good. All right. Great. All right. Expired listings. Man, come on. Let's get back to the basics here. There's opportunity right in front of our faces. And that is the exact way that to do this with that copyright information you just shared. So let's talk about number two. What are you thinking there?
Number two, it's I think it would surprise people to learn this, Jimmy. Instagram right now, businesses spend about $40 billion a year, which is incredible when you think about it. And when you look at advertising dollars and where you spend your money on marketing, oftentimes we get attracted to the newest, shiniest object. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, there's also another advertising platform that's generating $39 billion a year in revenue. That's direct mail. And I actually believe that direct mail, there's such an incredible opportunity to reimagine the type of marketing we do with direct mail. I'll give you an example of this. My friend Carrie hit me up on Instagram. She goes, Jimmy, I just got a $1.2 million listing off of a postcard you created. And so obviously I'm like, that's great. Tell me the story behind it. She sent it to a few hundred people. And the story was she sold a house above the Zestimate. And most people who do this, and by the way, Zillow has given us the greatest gift of all time. People don't know this, Jimmy. If you go to Zillow and you look up a home on Zillow, you can click below the Zestimate. There's a link called Zestimate History. You click on that link and it will expose their Zestimate history over time. So in the past, we would have no record of this, of what the Zestimate was before we sold the house or even the historical Zestimate. Zillow now, kudos to Zillow, they're now making that information transparent. So what Carrie did is Carrie took a screenshot of the Zestimate before she sold the house, and then a screenshot of the Zestimate after she sold the house. And she put those two photos on a postcard. And it was about if I'm not misquoting, about a $74,000 difference. And in the mind of the consumer, what that does, when she says, hey, we just sold the house $74,000 above the Zestimate. If you're thinking about making a move and you have the earliest thoughts of doing it, like, here's my number, call me. And so she got that $1.2 million listing from that postcard. But what she did is she created this curiosity gap in the mind of the consumer. And this is a really important thing. If you can get the consumer to question their beliefs, it can lead to a conversation. So in this instance, the average consumer believes that their Zestimate is probably generally accurate. Like, hey, this is a smart company. They get all the data. It's probably not out. And again, sophisticated consumers, sure, they probably know. But the average consumer, they're probably going to take it at face value. So she was able to use this bit of information to create this curiosity gap, which then when she sent out the Just Sold campaign, which it says saying sold above the ask price in 3 days with multiple offers, which is what every other person did or does in her market, she went the exact opposite direction. So shout out to Carrie, amazing execution of this campaign. Jimmy, I called this the ZVA postcard, Zillow versus agent. And so I would say it's time, the broader theme there, Jimmy, is it's time to reimagine our Just Sold and start highlighting and showcasing the things that we're doing that are really justifying the value that we provide for our clients.
You know, Jimmy, historically speaking, I've always said when other people get bored with something is really when the opportunity shows up. And
Totally.
I think direct mail right now, especially reimagined like this, the way that you've been doing it and the way you're teaching and everything you're putting out. By the way, if you're not following Jimmy on Instagram, I know what is it you said? You want to be the most valuable. What is the saying there, Jimmy, that you
I want to be the well, but I changed it now to I want to be the most likable Jimmy because I'm in second place compared to you. Okay, Jimmy
whatever.
Bahama. No,
Yeah.
I'm trying to be the most useful person to follow in real estate. Like I said earlier, my thing with Instagram is I just try to put out things that can help you get customers. Because I mean, like this is a the challenge right now, Jimmy. I tweeted this recently. I said if you're waiting for Jerome Powell to drop interest rates,
All
something's
that.
really broken. And it's
Mhm.
like I think right now this I recognize it's such a agents right now are they're I mean the level of outside forces trying to disrupt them is so extreme that if I can help them just get some customers, it's going to make everything a little bit easier for them. And so I think that's really where my focus has been and where I've carved out my niche is like let's just focus on this is the one thing we can control, which is getting customers and serving them. Out the other stuff, that's beyond our control at this stage.
So good. But by the way, I started this, but make sure you're following Jimmy on Instagram. I mean, he may say
Thank you.
that, but listen, I don't, I mean, you're my boy and everything, but let's be real. I mean, there is nobody that I know that is giving that much value, that is actionable examples. So yeah, please, I would encourage everybody to go out there. You're going to get a deal or two if you just follow Jimmy on Instagram every year, in my opinion. All right, let's go on to number 3 because this is such good stuff. Listen, if we stopped right now. There's listings to be taken, but wait, there's more. I always want to say that. You know what I mean? But wait, there's more.
There
All
you
right, let's keep moving. All
go.
right.
That's it. So the third strategy I would say is, and this is something you can do on a monthly basis. So I got a message from my buddy Trey who says, Jimmy, I just got an $850,000 listing opportunity, and the guy wants to buy a $900,000 house. So you can do the math on that. That's $1.7 million in production just right there. I got an email from my buddy Tammy Montgomery, who is the queen of Shreveport, Louisiana. I mean, Mama T. I absolutely love her. She's just all action. She sent me a message, Jimmy. I just got a $350,000 appointment from this email. And so this email that I'm gonna share with you right now, and again, we'll give the example in the show notes, but you can follow along here. This email that we created is what I refer to as a seller activation email. And the important thing here, Jimmy, is I'm going to give you the exact email that we sent, but I'm also going to encourage everyone. This is something you can do on a monthly basis. And so here's the script. The first thing that we do is in the subject line of the email, we use the technique is qualify through copy. And what that basically means is if somebody opens up the email, that tells me there's a level of interest that they have that at the very minimum, they should be on my call list for that week to check in with them. So the subject line is, would you sell if dot, dot, dot. And so I'm opening up that curiosity gap. I know if they've opened up the email that I'm qualifying through copy. Then I open up the message, and I got to give shout out to my buddy Chris Smith who shared this with me from Bankrate. Bankrate put out this incredible study on like what's going on with the cost of maintaining your home. And one of the data points that really stood out to me was the cost of maintaining your home has gone up 26% in the last 4 years. So the opening line of the email is, I just read that the annual cost of maintaining a home is 26% higher than 4 years ago. And now here's where the psychology really comes into play. Now I turn on the herd mentality, which is people tend to be drawn towards or act like other people. It's the old PT Barnum line. Nothing draws a crowd quite like a crowd. And so the second line of the email is, this is why many sellers are cashing in on the equity they've gained recently. And so what I'm doing there is I'm saying, hey, listen, this is the reason why a lot of people are thinking about selling or have been selling is because the cost of living is going up, which is objectively true for many sellers across the US and Canada. And then the last line here is, if my buddy Chris Voss and Phil Jones had a baby, I have what I call the irresistible hook, which is, I know this is probably a crazy question, but if you had a great offer, would you consider selling? And
So good.
that email, Jimmy, is 40 words, 50 words. You could read it on your phone, and then the answer is like, yeah, right, maybe I would explore the idea. And this is the thing I want everyone to visualize when it comes to doing marketing. to attract sellers and get listings, which is the business I'm in, everybody makes this mistake, Jimmy. And I wish we could I wish we could add an overlay here that can just visualize what I'm about to communicate. Is if you think about one side of the spectrum or the axis is decision, and on the opposite side is a conversation. What everyone does with their marketing is they try to get the consumer to make a decision based on what they're seeing. Do you need to sell your house right now? Would you sell your house? I mean, they're trying to get them to make a decision. It's a big decision. It's a big ask. Robert Cialdini in his book, Influence, talked about this idea of getting your foot in the door. It's called the foot in the door technique, which is what's the easiest, simplest step that they can take so you can get some momentum in the deal. What I do with my marketing is I look to start a conversation, because a conversation will lead to a decision. But you're very rarely going to get someone to say, oh, I saw an ad, I got an email, I got a postcard, now I'm going to sell. Chances are they should talk to a professional who can give them the information so they can make an informed decision. So anytime I do a marketing campaign, I ask myself this question, Jimmy. I'm like, am I forcing the consumer to make a really difficult decision, or am I just starting a conversation? And all the ones that work tend to be easy to answer questions that start a conversation. So that would be my advice as it relates to, just broadly speaking, marketing. But the equity update email, which we call the seller activation email, Jimmy, relevant news that happens every month, you can use that as a hook when you're creating these emails to send out to your database. And by the way, monthly is not too much. Monthly is completely okay in this scenario.
Yeah. Yeah. No, this is great. And listen, I mean, obviously, like you said, you can do these and you can figure these out. I know that y'all are offering these things to your clients every month where there's just constantly stuff there. But I will say this, I just realized there was a reason. Last night, when I was at home, I knew we were going to be talking today. And every single time we do, look at this, I've already got multiple pages of notes here. I sat there, my wife had this movie on. And I grabbed a tennis ball and just sat there with my hand and just flexed the tennis ball, because I knew I needed to get my wrist warmed up because I was going to be taking so many notes. So I was prepared today, but I'm still needing to shake my hand out a little bit from all these notes. But all right, this is such good stuff. Let's keep moving. Let's keep moving with this.
So number 4 on the list, Jimmy, I bet, and I'm willing to put money on this, Jimmy. So in the comments of this video, I want people to know if you're doing this technique, because I bet that if this video gets thousands of views or tens of thousands of views, I bet there is less than 1% of the people who are going to watch this who are actually doing this technique. And I'll tell you, this may be the best new strategy that you've never heard of. So my buddy Steve Rove sent me a message on Instagram, and this happens every day for me, which is always just so enjoyable, and it's very rewarding for me. It was a picture of a $19,000 check, right? He's like, "Hey, it just said thank you," and it's a picture of a check he just cashed, and it was off of a campaign that he saw me present at a Tom Ferry event back in February, and it's called the Appointment Sales Letter. And so the way to think about this is, Jimmy, if you're a good listing agent, chances are you're going to be winning about 80% of the listing appointments you go on. Now, if you're winning 100%, it just means you're not going on enough, right? But if you're winning 50%, something's off with your pitch, something's off with your value prop. But the thing that people miss is that every time someone gets a listing, everyone thinks that's when they can start promoting. That's when they can start marketing. And I actually think the exact opposite is true. The moment you book an appointment is the moment in which the marketing machine needs to get turned on. And so the way this letter works is like this, Jimmy. And by the way, this can be a call script. It can be a letter. You can do a combination of both. It's, hey, Jimmy, this is Jimmy Mackin calling with Mackin Realty. The reason I'm reaching out is because I'm going to be in your area Tuesday at 1 p.m. because your neighbor is thinking about selling. I'm calling around, or I'm talking to everyone in the area to see if they'd be interested in getting an updated home value report, because when this house sells, it's going to impact your home value. If so, text me here's my number. And so what's really powerful about this is that I'm going to be in the area. I'm going on an appointment letter. You can use this, Jimmy, for a listing appointment. You can use it for an open house. Jimmy, if I'm a buyer's agent and I'm showing a house in your area, I'm like, hey, I'm going to be in the area because I'm showing one of the homes actively listed. and I know when this house is going to sell, it's going to impact your home value. I'm talking to everybody. Would you like me to stop by and give you an updated home value? I mean, it is such a powerful way to take every single appointment and turn it into 2 or 3 more. And I promise you right now that a few of my followers who watch this video, because we have a lot of crossover, are probably doing this now, and they probably don't want me sharing it because it's so effective. But this strategy here, if you just add this, if you get 12 listings a year, Jimmy, on average, if you add this to your strategy, I'm telling you, you just literally doubled your volume with one tactic.
This is really good. And I've got a few of my friends that are doing this. I know Julie Colleen in St. Louis is doing this and killing it with it. She's doing the same thing like what you taught also with the green screen. Hey, I want to be in this neighborhood kind of thing,
Yeah.
And
Yep.
if anybody's interested, I may have a listing. Let me know if you want details. I mean, all of these things are so, what have you called that to me? You said it a few times to me, and I was trying to remember this the other day. Is it a marketable activity or a marketable, what do you call those where everything is
we call it a marketable moment, which is
marketable
this.
moment? Yes.
It's a moment that happens right now where you say, okay, hey, that's something I should promote. I should advertise. And this is like, think about it like a bit of a movie trailer. You're promoting it before it goes live, right before it goes live, when it's live, after it's live. Like you just, every opportunity you have to build some buzz and build some excitement around it, you've got to take advantage of it, because in this market, it's not the best real estate agent that wins. I mean, if that were the case, I mean, there would not be so much shifting of top producers and across the U.S. It's the agent who can capture the most attention and the one who can build the most trust. And that to me is one of the mistakes I think we make, is that we can't. I said at the beginning of the podcast, you can't save souls in an empty church. I mean, we got to get people's attention to be able to have those conversations and get those appointments. So that number 4 for me is, I mean, this is like a secret sauce, Jimmy, is the appointment sales letter.
That's so great. And I think this is you made a great point, and that's the best analogy. And I've not heard you say that before, at least to me, about thinking of it like a movie. You know, it's the pre-launch, it's the launch, it's all of the promotion that happens prior to that leads to the opening weekend, so to speak, box office number that captures everybody's attention, but then feeds it for the rest of the time. That's such a great analogy, and it is absolutely true. And when you're doing this, also by doing these, you're showing people that you're out there hustling. Sellers notice that. You're showing that you're actually active in their community. And it's another one of those touch points that kind of almost is a little bit of a disruption. It's not the typical that they're used to getting. So, man, that's such good stuff. And I agree. If you're doing this, comment down below in any successes you've had, because I think this is one of those that, again, speaking to the herd mentality, I think if we share some of these stories of people that are actually doing it, other people will do it as well. So, all right, that's number 4, correct? Let's head to number 5.
Let's land the plane here. And I actually want to throw this one back to you, because this is one that you helped me build and helped me develop, because you had probably what I think is the best line of all time. And I don't care if you've heard Jimmy say this line 100 times, it's worth him saying it 101 times until it becomes part of your scripting. So Jimmy, this is the circle dialing tactic. So my buddy Matthew Braden was an ISA for Dan Chin. Dan Chin's a curator client. Dude's a monster. Yeah. I mean, he is just absolutely killing it. Matthew sent me a message on Facebook. He's like, we got 6 appointments and took on 3 listings this past weekend from circle dialing. And I mean, like, talk about, if you're watching this video right now, you're like, Jimmy, I don't got a big budget. I'm looking for high intent, ready to move opportunities. Circle dialing is probably, from a bang for your buck, one of the most effective strategies. So Jimmy, I want you to give the audience your circle dialing script, like what you would say when you're calling around, and I'll add some commentary and some ideas to what I would do in addition to what you're saying here.
Sure, yeah, and it goes back to these marketable moments. You can do this with a new listing, open house, recent sale. I'm going to use the recent sale because, listen, if you're a newer agent or you're an agent that doesn't have where you've sold something recently or a listing of yours, you can do this on other listings, because I'll promise you most agents are not doing this. So you could actually, you don't have to say, you don't need to, represent that you sold it or it was your listing. You just need to say, and I'm just use that as an example. Hey, Jimmy, it's Jimmy Burgess with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. I just want to kind of let you know that just about 4 doors down from your place, we just had the house sell And it really has affected your valuation of your home. And I'm just curious if anybody has shared with you the information about that sale. And then just be quiet, and they say, oh, yeah, I've got my friend. Okay, great, good. Hey, you have any other additional questions? Okay. And typically they're going to say, no, tell me about it. Because what you did is what you just said. We've created that curiosity gap because I've told them that it affects their value. And there's nothing. And so from that standpoint, it's not like we're asking them to sell. Just curious if you've gotten the information on this. And then what we do is we provide the information on that. And then we just say, and by the way, we had a ton of activity on that house. It sold in 4 days. And we know there were a group of buyers that missed out. So I'm just curious if you know of any of your neighbors that you've heard that might be considering selling, because it may be an opportunity to take advantage of the newness of this recent sale to be able to actually not even have to put their place on the market and receive off an offer without all the headaches of getting this thing ready to go on the market. And then just be quiet. Now, listen, if they're willing to sell their place, they're going to tell you. Now, if they say, no, I'm not, say, as you're getting off, this is almost like, I call it the Columbo close. I don't know if I know you're not old enough, Jimmy, to remember this, but the Columbo used to be this guy on TV, and he would ask the question. He's like a detective, and then he would turn around, and right before he left, he said, one other thing. So it's the Columbo. It's like, hey, listen, I would be the worst real estate agent in the world if I didn't at least ask if there's a price where you guys might consider selling. And you'll be amazed at how many times that'll open a conversation of, well, actually, we're probably next spring, but if we got a price now of this, we would absolutely consider. So it opens that opportunity there. I hope that was what you were looking for. I mean, we've talked about so many things.
I am flattered that you think I'm so young that I don't know who Columbo is. So I appreciate that. But yes, it is. No, there's a few things that I wrote down that I think are worth repeating for everyone. And I think this is such an important part of it. The question that you ask when you're circle dialing is, has anybody given you a call to cover the details or go over the details? Right. So that's such a great open-ended question where there's probably no bad answer, because they may say yes, but chances are like 9 out of 10 times they're going to say no. Now, I'll give you a quick pro tip here. We built an ISA company, and we made, I think 300,000 dials, outbound, cold leads, cold prospects. And there's a few little tactics that we learned that are really effective. The first, if you're going to be outbound dialing and calling, one of the powerful phrases you can use is, hey, Jimmy, this is Jimmy Mackin calling with Mackin Realty. I know that you're not expecting my call. Right. And what that is, I mean, right out of the gates, it's a way for us to get this, like, talk about head nod. Like, yeah, you're right. I wasn't. The reason I'm calling is because 123 Main Street just sold near your property. Has anyone given you a call to go over the details? That's a great way to kind of get past that brick wall. The second thing is I'm a huge fan of Jeremy Miner on Instagram sharing his advice on this concept called low status and high status. And his advice, which I agree with completely, is that you should try to maintain a high status position. So me asking you, hey, Jimmy, you busy? Hey, Jimmy, you got a few minutes? Hey, Jimmy, I don't want to bother you. This is all low status language. It makes me come off as desperate, salesy, and pushy. High status would be, if I asked you that question, Jimmy, has anyone given you a call with details? And you said, no one's called me. I would then say, well, I've got a few minutes before my next call, or I've got a few minutes for my next appointment. I want to just kind of here's some information you should know about. And what I'm doing there is, again, a call or appointment. Again, you're probably going to pick up the phone and call again. So that's a true statement, right? Like, hey, I'm going to call somebody else anyways. But it's a great way to maintain that high status. You're not the only person I'm talking to today. I got a lot of people on my Rolodex I'm working through. And I think that Columbo moment that you hit on, which is, I'd be the worst realtor, or I'd be a terrible realtor if I didn't ask, is there a price is there a price so good you consider selling? I think that is such a absolute home run type of question that if you start adding that to your scripts, and by the way, Matt, I gave that script to Matthew Braden, who is a experienced, seasoned, super talented ISA. The guy's on the phone every day, all day for years. He introduced that line, talking to someone who had their brick wall up. I mean, every answer, no, right. No, yes, no. And he goes, hey, man, I'd be a terrible realtor if I didn't ask. Is there a price you consider selling at if you got a great and instantly that call went from a 30-second going to be a click to like a 15-minute phone conversation. So our last bit of advice here, Jimmy, as we wrap is it's time, if you're going to be focused on generating listings, you've got to, and you don't have a huge budget, you don't have a huge database, you can't spend a bunch of money on direct mail. Circle dialing is one of the most effective strategies, but you got to have the right script. And hopefully the
Right.
script that Jimmy and I have been brainstorming gives you that inspiration.
Hey, nobody does this better than you, brother. This is really good stuff. I know everybody got some value out of this. Make sure you reach out, you let Jimmy know, follow him on Instagram, make sure that you're subscribed. And Jimmy, how do they sign up for you've got a channel on there also, right? I get those texts. I mean, and it's tremendous what that is. How do they sign up for
Yes.
that?
So there's two quick plugs here. The first is I have a broadcast channel on Instagram. It's got almost
Right.
3,000
That's it.
members. It's awesome. It's an awesome service. And then everyone always asks me, Jimmy, can I hire you to be my marketer? Can I hire you to be my chief marketing officer? I built this company with Tom Ferry called Listing Leads. It is the
Yeah.
fastest growing membership site in real estate. We are incredibly proud of the fact that this thing has taken off like a rocket ship. But all of the scripts that I've shared with you today, everything is part of that Listing Leads membership. It's a free trial. Sign up, try it out. I'm confident that if you liked what we covered today, you're going to love being a part of that community. So I appreciate you giving me the platform to share that. And hopefully this is valuable for the audience and have an opportunity to take advantage of these ideas.
So, hey, listen, the only way these things don't work is if you don't take action on them. So I want to encourage you, take action. You don't have to do all five. Find one and take action on it as soon as possible. And I promise you can get some results. Take care and we'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks for watching the video. I specifically chose the video below for you because it builds on the one you just watched. I hope it's helpful and I'll talk to you soon.